It's kind of like if I give you a golf club and you're standing on the driving range and I'm like, Casey, can you hit this ball, straight 250 yards? You're like, yeah, I watched a YouTube video. I'm all set. Like, no, show me how you do that. Grab the club. How do you stand? What's the whole line? Like everything. And then when I see you slicing, now I can start to coach you and make you better. Right.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Oh man, I have hit the button. This adventure is about to begin. I'm excited for my guest today. And if it gives you a clue, whatever kind of beverages I prepare for the show, this is the kind of guest you're about to hear. And I've got two kinds. I've got water with maximum hydration element electrolytes, and I've got Boss Coffee because my guest is an absolute boss. I can't wait to introduce you. Well, he is an entrepreneur, an Ironman, a strategist, a marketer, sales professional. He is a revenue pro, and he has put in the time in sales, put in the time in marketing, even on the upside, weaves it all together, makes a little basket of revenue right there. And I'm not bullshitting you when I say that his style is not like, ooh, how can we make this ad campaign a little better? He's like, what's 3X look like? What's 10X look like on revenue growth? He works a lot of tech companies. He loves complex sales challenges. He smashes that with that hammer that you all love. President and CEO of Executive Strategy Group, Kevin McCann, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Casey. Great to be here.
Man, are you ready? I am prepared. I am hydrated for today.
I don't know if I can live up to that intro, but yeah, I'm ready to go.
Hell yeah, let's do this. So I'm going to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but you're an Iron Man, so, iron sharpens iron. 1 second. Okay, here you go. Thor's hammer. Take that, sir.
Nice. Thank you.
You got it?
Grab it
Just
there.
casually grab that, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not watching the video, Kevin just took that like he would take a rake, passing it to a neighbor. Like, let me just take the heaviest hammer in the world. All right, Kevin, take Thor's hammer, smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception, set the record straight once and for all.
All right. So the myth for today is if we hire more salespeople, that'll solve all of our revenue problems. That's the myth.
And it won't.
It won't. Right. So many companies think that the answer to doing that is, solving the problem is we're just going to hire more salespeople, throw more stuff against the wall, see what sticks. But in reality, without addressing a bunch of underlying issues like sales enablement stuff, do we have the right stuff? Do we have the right value proposition? Are we even targeting the right people? It doesn't matter how many people you bring onto the sales team, you're just going to keep failing. And we see that again and again in the companies we work with.
Just like that more is better bumper sticker. In this case, no, you're just going to have a messier wall, right? You just threw more spaghetti at that thing, and now you just got more to clean up. It's not going to incrementally make anything good. And you can see this across marketing, across sales, across anywhere. But I love coming at it from the sales side because, the marketers out there going, yeah, I know. I've definitely been in meetings, and I've been in on-site consulting sessions where they're like, yeah, we have a building and a half full of people just banging the phones. We're going to go build another building and fill it with more people. And we're hoping to get 0.5% increase, but we're not here for 0.5%. So where does this come from? Why do people think this? What's the origin?
So I think it's just they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. It's partially unconscious incompetence, right? Like I don't know enough about sales. Well, a lot of the companies we work with are tech companies. So they're very wrapped around the axle of here's the thing I sell, here's our product, it's got 11 buttons on it, isn't that cool? Whatever. Like it's the thing as opposed to the value that it provides to the customer. So they're like, all right, well, we have a great thing and it could almost sell itself. We'll just hire on more salespeople and make that happen. But they never really flushed out what is our sales process. So when I look at this challenge, issue, whatever, there's really 4 things to focus on, right? So if we had like a checklist of like 4 ideal things, I mean, the first thing is fix the engine before adding fuel. right? So optimize the sales process first. Just because I can go faster and longer, whatever, doesn't mean I'm going better, right? So you want to optimize before you scale. Um, One example is, recently brought on a client where they were they have a good offer, but the founder of the company is super technical, had never really hired salespeople at scale, and that was my background. Hired salespeople at scale, and proven the model, and then building out more teams to sell that model. So he hired on a rep. Rep didn't give them the numbers they were looking for. They fire the rep, go hire another rep. Same thing. It's just like history repeating itself. So we said, let's take a look at, like, what is your process? Like, he's like, well, my process is give them a phone, give them access to CRM, and here's our products, go sell them. But there wasn't anything around, like, how do I even build a list? What's the ideal list look like? And this is where, like, Casey, your background with the marketing side of things, I think more salespeople need to really understand the buyer persona better before going to sell to those people. So I think the salespeople traditionally are trained up on the product and the offer, but they're not really trained up on who is this offer for, and who is it, what problems is it fixing, and what goals is it helping them to achieve in their business. And the more clarity you have around that, the easier it is to present your thing in terms that the customer can understand. So fix the engine before adding the fuel. So optimize that sales process, have steps. Like, what are the steps that we take to make sure that we're engaging with this prospects? That's the first step.
How granular do you get with those steps?
Pretty granular. So first thing is, like, okay, I'm sitting at my desk as a sales rep looking at HubSpot CRM today, for instance, or Salesforce. Doesn't matter the CRM. What do you do? Well, I start talking to people. Well, who do you talk to? Well, it depends who's in CRM. Well, where'd that list come from?
Yeah. What report?
So it's kind of like I took my son to the Celtics playoffs last year, and as we're sitting there, 'cause they're warming up, getting ready to warm up, I'm watching. I think it was Jalen, or one of I think it was Jalen doing free throws, right? So you would expect, he did some free throws to warm up. How many free throws do you think he took while we were sitting there actually counting in a row?
You're just warming up before the game.
Just warming.
Is there like a rack of balls right next to him so you can just like bam, bam, bam?
Well, it's more like maybe 2 or 3 balls, but there's like 3 people standing there with the rebounds, giving him the ball off the rebound. It's more of that.
And what, while you're just watching him? I don't know, like 20?
Yeah, try like 70, 80,
Whoa.
90, right? But
Yeah.
it's in a row, right? So he's getting consistency, he's getting momentum, he's understanding, like, right eye, left eye, like if I change a shoulder, if I level up, like you can see all the little micro adjustments he's doing to get into that momentum and that muscle memory. Then he goes and he does 3 points. Then he goes and he does baseline. Same deal, right? But as sales reps, like, and business owners, we're saying, hey, sales rep, jump on CRM and just start making calls. First call could be to a manufacturing company. Next call could be to a healthcare company. Next call could be to a whatever, dog food company. Doesn't matter. But there's no momentum there. So part of what I would say, like when we talk about fixing the engine before adding the fuel, optimizing that sales process, how about grouping vertical industries or titles together so you can start getting those 70 free throws in a row and get momentum? Because if all I'm doing today is calling CIOs of tech companies or CIOs of healthcare companies, you start to hear the same things over and over, and you start to hear their language. So, like, even just like a small nuance, like calling into a bank versus a credit union. And if I called into a bank and said, hey, we can help you get more members, like, you're an idiot. We don't have
Hell's a
members.
member. Yeah, we don't have members.
Like, credit unions are members and banks are customers. So vice versa, just a small little tweak in the language there can start making you sound like a peer as opposed to like some, idiot vendor. So it's things like that, right? Like grouping the calls together. Then what am I going to say on that intro call to get them to engage with me? I got to give before I take. And most companies I've experienced, like when we start working together, they haven't even figured that piece out. So it's like all these little micro steps to get the list started, the outreach going. How do I communicate in email or on LinkedIn? Because there's only 5 ways to reach out to a new human. You could talk to them on the phone, call them, you can email them, you could text them or LinkedIn them, right? You're not going to Snapchat them in a B2B model. You could send them a direct mail letter, or you could hit them in person at a trade show, networking event, elevator, whatever, right? So we should have our communication scripts for each one of those channels ready to go situationally and verticalized. One of the things I'll talk about, my third bullet is arm your soldiers. But when you're arming your soldiers to go to market, like every soldier, every sales rep should have the traditional onboarding, right? Train them on your service, your product, understand the nuances, maybe some sales objections, but that's boot camp, right? So like every sales rep should go through the traditional boot camp. But if you look at like a soldier, for instance, when they come out of boot camp, not every one of them is going to go into like desert warfare or naval warfare or mountainous warfare. Like they'll have their specialties, but they got to be trained up on it and know what to expect and what gear to bring and all that. Same thing with sales. Like if I'm going to go and target healthcare, there's a certain process and a language and an understanding of what's going on in their world so that I can make my value relevant to them. That's part of that process and getting that dialed in.
Love it, dude. So good. All right, so
That's
that
step one.
the step right, I love it. That's so but, like, I'm hungry to die like, cool. You gotta fix that engine, man, and that I think so many times we forget about the engine, which is sounds so dumb.
Yeah. It's like we're just running this thing into the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, and anyone who's ever tried to, like, move the steering wheel when the power steering's not working, it's like
Exactly.
you need an engine, like, come on.
Exactly.
So, okay, cool.
So then second is you want to align the troops, right? In this case, I'm talking marketing and sales. So there's the siloed, traditional story of I got marketing over here, I got sales over here. Marketing generates a lead, throws it over the wall, and then just ducks and hopes the sales reps can do something with it. Sales reps come back to him and say, "This is crap. This lead's no good. Whatever." Right. So how about we start here? Let's define what is a marketing qualified lead. What does that even mean, an MQL? And then what does an SQL mean? Right. So in order to even unify these guys, like, and again, this is where like I spent my whole career in sales. And it wasn't until really the last like 7 years where we really started to dive in deep and do marketing for our customers that this really created an aha moment. I'm like, wow, I really got to understand the buyer persona if we're going to do like email campaigns or landing pages or pay per click campaigns that are going to resonate with that target audience. I'm like, this would be good training for sales reps to really understand who the hell they're trying to talk to, like get inside their head. Like there's some cool tools like, have you ever heard of, oh, what's it called? It's a plugin. It's like a disk analysis tool, something Genie, or I forget what it's called, but it's basically a plugin to LinkedIn. So if I pulled your record up on LinkedIn, I could see your disk profile. So I know how to talk to you. Like, are you a high D, high I, low S, low C like me? Or are you, low D and you need to collaborate on everything? You're not decisive. So it's one, Crystal Knows. That's what it's called. Crystal Knows. I think it's with a K, something like that. But it's just being clear on that buyer persona in a way that like now I can communicate with my marketing team. If they're going to throw me leads, I know what an MQL is in their words, and they know what's qualified from my perspective. It seems simple and obvious, but most companies completely miss this, and they're doing this all the time.
No, that's sick, man. I gotta try out that crystal nose later. I think I like it. I tried that at one point, but just knowing what kind of person is over there. But yeah, yeah, marketing and sales, they've got to align. They've got to, share the research, right? To your point, that buyer persona. If the marketing team has done that work, man, don't just hoard it. Share it.
And share how to use it. And that's actually number three is arm your soldiers and equip them with the right tools and scripts. So like I said, if we're in a game of communication, which is what marketing is, frankly, sales is too. Sales is more, um, persuasion that than just straight up communication. But if I got 5 ways to reach another human on this planet, then arm your sales reps with all 5 of those ways with content to be able to engage that prospect in a way that makes them feel important. It makes them feel like you understand their world. So what we do for ourselves and for our customers is create that thing that I just described. We call it a vertical industry specific, situational selling playbook, right? So it's a vertical industry guide. Like, what do I do when I talk to this type of person? And then it's making sure we're clear on what their care abouts are, their goals and their challenges, because that's what we're essentially helping them solve. And we're putting it in a frame that matters to them. And what that means is how do we help them increase revenue, decrease expenses, or minimize business risk? That's the only three reasons why any business spends any money.
Whoa, say the list again.
Increase revenue, decrease expenses, or minimize business risk. Those are the only three reasons why any company spends money. They're like, no, Kevin, that's not true. They spend money to buy servers. Oh, well, why do they need the server? To put the application on. And what applications are on there? Oh, it's Salesforce, this and that and the other thing. Okay, and what do those applications do? Well, ultimately, they'll help them drive revenue. Exactly. So no matter what the purchase is, it'll always come back down to you're either going to help me make more money, save money, or mitigate business risk. And risk isn't just insurance, right? It could be like me, like if we go out and we coach, companies on how to generate revenue and we teach a sales reps how to communicate value, the risk that we're reducing is the risk of a sales rep saying the wrong thing and pissing off a prospect or not connecting with an ideal prospect because they were too focused on themselves and not on the customer. So that's risk mitigation too. But all of those things associate value fiscally to the business owner from a revenue generation, cost cutting, or risk cutting standpoint, when they start to establish that, hey, Casey, if I don't hit these revenue numbers, this is the big impact of my business. That impact becomes the value of your offer you're about to pitch them.
Okay, love it.
So that's arming the soldiers with the right stuff. So content around all those. And then the last one, number 4, is score the game, measure what matters. So when I threw out the myth that I'll just hire more salespeople and we'll solve our revenue problems, what are those salespeople doing? Like, well, they pick up the phone and make calls. Great. How many calls? I don't know, 20, 25. Great. And how many of those calls are converting to meetings? I don't know. Well, how many meetings they do per week? Yeah, I'm not really sure. How many do they need to do? Like, what's your average deal size? It's like 50K. Great. Well, how many deals do they need to close on a monthly basis to hit their revenue goals? Well, it's like 11. Awesome. Well, how many activities do they need to have to close 11 deals? So it's kind of like a waterfall effect. And like you can build a scorecard based on just those 4 or 5 activities that a sales rep owns. Right. So you look at lagging indicators, which is what all CEOs do. How much revenue did you get generate for us this month, and how many deals did you close? Those are lagging indicators. You can't do that unless the leading indicators are firing on all cylinders consistently and in a system. That is calls, outbound touches like emails, LinkedIn outreaches. Those are usually the 3 outbound methodologies that sales reps use. And then how many meetings I booked because of those, how many meetings actually showed.
What were the outbound ones you were saying? The 3?
You can call someone, you can email someone, or you can hit them up on LinkedIn. B2B best practices, that's what they're doing.
And that's what stirs the pot to hopefully get like a call, a
You
meeting?
got it. You're right. So the goals of that outreach is what? Like, what's your sales process? Back to number 1. Well, our sales process is tease out the industry or to tease out the list to get meetings so that we can present our value prop. Well, then the next step is the meeting. So how many meetings did that activity generate? And so you got to start with activity, but then you start to quickly focus on conversion, right? So like if they're not doing the activity, there's not going to be much to talk about on the conversion side. So everyone's like, oh, but what about quality? What about impact? Like, yeah, I get it, but you got to start, you got to do reps before you know how many baskets went in the hoop. Otherwise, it's like it's just hypothesizing on everything. So get activity jamming first, and then we dial in the accuracy of it. It's just like shooting basketballs or shooting a gun or whatever. You gotta scope, focus in the scope once the activity is underway.
Gotcha. So it's like, hey, we've got if we don't have enough calls, you take a step back, or you should have anyways. Should have been like, well, okay, how many of these activities do I need to do? Maybe it's 200, maybe it's 100, and that gets me however many calls a week, right?
We have a process. We actually have a spreadsheet where we walk them through. Like it starts with what's your average deal size and actually it starts with what's your goal. What do you want the sales rep to do? Or it could be a company thing too. But say it's a sales rep. I want the sales rep to do $1 million this year of revenue. Great. What's your average deal size? And then we just simple math. You divide it out and say, well, if I'm going to do 1 million and our average deal size is 50K, then you can pretty quickly figure out how many deals have to close, over the next 4 quarters. Then it's like, okay, well, how many proposals need, or how many meetings that you generate, or how many meetings do you have, lead to a proposal, and it's 1 out of 3. Okay, then that means I have to do this many meetings, so on and so forth. But it gets right down to how many outbound activities do I need to do to generate 1 meeting, to generate this many proposals, to generate this much revenue at my current close rate of 30% or whatever it is. So it just kind of makes it easy to say, all right, great. Now I know my activity. Now we just got to jump on the horse and do it. And then if it's like, well, gee, I thought it was 100 calls to one meeting, but it turns out it's only 50. Perfect. Then we modify the numbers, and now we have the starts of a system. If it's the reverse, or it's like, holy cow, I thought it was 100 calls, but it's really 200 calls. What's the problem? Well, curiosity. How many connects did you have out of those calls? Well, I had 100. Well, how did those calls go? Then we coach and we listen to the calls and hear that you're just talking about yourself. No wonder why I wouldn't want to, book a meeting with you. So, but the activity gives you the opportunity to say, okay, now we're going to coach and get this dialed in. It's kind of like if I give you a golf club and you're standing on the driving range, and I'm like, Casey, can you hit this ball, straight 250 yards? You're like, yeah, I watched a YouTube video. I'm all set. Like, no, show me how you do that. Grab the club. How do you stand? What's the whole line? Like everything. And then when I see you slicing, now I can start to coach you and make you better, right? But it takes activity to do that.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of folks that are expecting the downline results? They're expecting the lagging. They're looking at the laggers and they're not thinking about everything that has to happen to make that happen.
All the time. They're like, it's not my job. Just figure it out. Just go get the revenue. Like, I hired you as a sales rep. I'm paying you good money. Go figure it out. But so it's kind of like the CEOs in these cases of these companies that are maybe 2 million to 10 million in revenue. It's hard. This is kind of hard work. Like what is our value, true value to companies? And that's where you got to dive deep. And I honestly believe the CEOs own a large part of that. Like, you're the visionary, you're the direction. Theoretically, the whole reason you came up with this product or this solution is to solve problems for other people, serve them at the highest level. And then you bring salespeople on to deliver on that mission and that vision. If you haven't completed the vision, like, oh, I got a great product. Now I'm just trying to find a problem to solve. Not as powerful as I clearly know what the problem is, the impact of that problem. That's why we created this offer. And here's our story. And here's all our validating content around it. That sets your salespeople up for success.
Do you see vision and mission as the same thing, or do they get separated?
I don't know. Sometimes it can be. I think sometimes mission almost gets like off the rails. Sometimes, like in conversations I've had, like, oh, we're altruistic, we want to change the world, and whatever. Like, they're not specific enough. So like it's almost like I'm on a mission to end world hunger. Like, okay, that's awesome, but like, what's the vision of how you're going to get from here to there? Like, it's not clear. So I don't know. Like, I've had some of those conversations. I think if they can at least map out, because a salesperson is going to be kind of black and white. Give me the dots that connect me from where I am to like my revenue number. And it's awesome talking platitudes, but you got to help walk me through how I can go through a path or a journey to make this revenue happen for you, the business owner. So
And so the vision is that path of like, here's how we're gonna get there. Here's where I wanna go, and here's how we're gonna get there.
correct. And a mission might be a little, like, maybe it's an extra 30,000 feet above that.
Oh, mission's even higher. And maybe that's the nicety, or is
Yeah. It's a good question. Actually, I don't know. I don't get into that. I don't get into that conversation too much. I'm really talking more like strategy and tactics as opposed to vision, mission. Um, vision to me is, I always frame it out with the customer in mind. Like, how many customers can we solve in this addressable market, and what's the impact we can have on them? That's kind of like how I look at it. And then the mission is our step by step to make that happen. So maybe it is the reverse.
yeah, maybe mission is like the more tactical, go take that hill. Have you ever experienced working with your clients that their vision is just like, well, no one's really sure, even the CEO. Now we just do this. We just and I think it helps, but, like, they're not really that connected to the challenges.
It's funny. So like one of our models, our frameworks is our discovery sales call. So like there's four steps in that. One is, what's the current state the customer's in? What's their ideal state that they would like to be in? How do they intend to get there? Like, what was their path to get there? Like, I guess you could say mission, but what was their path to get there? And then I get to pitch my solution to show you how we can help you. So one thing I see is that they say, well, we just do what we do. We don't really have a vision. We don't know what's possible. they've never really been asked it, or they've never asked it themselves. So I say, what's your current state? Well, currently we're here. And then I say, well, where do you want to be? They're like, oh, I want to be able to climb a 4,000-foot mountain. Like, do you realize with just a little more training and a little more focus, you could actually climb Everest? Like, no, I had no idea. Oh my God. How like they can't even fathom that, right? So it's almost like part of your value as a company or as a salesperson or as a marketing team is to actually give them a possibility of or a conversation of what's possible beyond what they think their ideal state is. Then you're kind of breathing life into like, oh my God, if I could do that, that'd be great. Now you're showing me value that you could take me to a place I never thought I could get to before.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I have conversations. A lot of people, maybe they're later on in the shopping process, and they come in and they they think they have a good sense for what they think is possible. I hear you, to shake that up a little bit and say, actually, like your Everest story. Actually, you know, your podcast could actually be in the top charts here. And oh, wow, I didn't realize that was a possibility.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So I know we get a little bit sidetracked, but that was really helpful. So, um, we were just sort of like really talking about scoring the game, and really love the down to earth, roll the sleeves up. What are the different numbers along the way that we need to get? And then you dive in if there's a hold up somewhere. Wow, you need 1,000 calls to get one deal? What are you doing?
I know. It's either then you can look at it. It's like it's either the right message for the wrong person. Like, how do we generate this list? I don't know. Someone gave it to me. Okay, then let's unpack that and let's fix it. Or it's the wrong message for the right list. Right. So it's like, no, this list is dialed in. CIOs of tech companies, this size revenue, this geography. That's our list. Great. Then what you're saying is not resonating. It's like I'm trying to sell a buggy whip to people that don't ride horses anymore. Like, it doesn't matter how good the buggy whip is, you're not gonna sell anything,
Yeah, you're driving a Model T and
right?
here's some hay.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
well,
What am I
right.
gonna do with this?
Man, powerful, powerful. Do you ever get people trying to track too much?
Yes, and what I do in that case, like, they show me, like, they roll out the scroll, they're like, "Here's our KPIs." The way to go through that, it's like you can track everything or you can track nothing, and you're pretty much in the same state of chaos, right? It's like how do I keep track of everything? Like on a CRM system, like do you ever see like a custom field that says color a person's house, name of their dog? Like really? Like, yeah, we could track it, but what is it going to do for us? So my immediate question to them is like, all right, you got a lot of metrics here. These clearly are the ones that are going to help you move the needle. This other one here on like what's the color of their house? How do you use this data to increase your revenue, decrease your expenses, or minimize your business risk? I don't know. It's just nice to know. So, what do you do with it? Like, you have your sales reps capturing it, or you have your marketing team capture it, or you're paying for a list to extract this nugget of information and you're tracking it. Why? Well, it's just good to know. Like, it's got to be a better answer than that. So just kind of unpack that. Like, how do we use this? Do we use it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? If we don't, why do we care about it? Like, could we have access to it at any point down the road if we wanted to? Yes, we could. Great. So then if the situation arises where I actually need to know the color of their house, then perfect. We know where to go and we will be resourceful for it. But let's not burn cycles capturing that and everything else under the sun. Right.
It's like that marketing form that has 20 fields in it
Exactly.
because everyone has a question they want to have answered, and then no one fills out the form. So
Right. Yeah, you bounce people, or God forbid they actually filled it out and you got all this data and you're looking at 1/10 of it. It's just silly. Yeah.
dude, Kevin, my mind is blown. There's already things I wanna work on after this pod. Who are you? Who are you? Take me back in time. Little Kevin days, did you know you're gonna be, schooling the masses on revenue growth and taking charge here? Take me back. What was little Kevin like? Did you know you were gonna be doing this?
Kind of. Yeah. I would say back little Kevin. So this would be, I'd probably go, I'll go as little as like end of elementary school, maybe junior high. I had a paper route. Grew up in Nashua, New Hampshire, and paper route I had rode my BMX bike, and we lived in a very hilly area in Nashua, off of Exit 4,
Exit 4, okay, yeah.
like on Peel Road over there. And so every afternoon. So it was an afternoon paper, it was a National Telegraph. It wasn't the Boston Globe. My buddy had Boston Globe. He had to get up at the crack of dawn. He was a swimmer anyway, so he was already up. I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Hard pass.
Exactly. So get home from school, drag the papers up the driveway, put them into the bag, jump on my BMX and go up the hill, down, around, whatever. As you go through the winter, brutal. But I'm like spinning out, fishtailing, chucking newspapers, in the snow. No other exercise at that point in my life would give me as much discipline as I now have in my life, just to know, like, you got to muscle through, you got to be perseverant. Days suck out there and you still got to do the job. Like, it was a very, very good lesson. So, and I liked like stacking the quarters every Friday. And it's like, all right, I see the rewards of my effort. So I think that kind of kicked in my entrepreneurial spirit. Um, Fast forward, I played soccer growing up pretty competitively. I was on a travel team. We'd go down to Connecticut, New York, and had a really good group of guys. So that gave me that outlet and competitiveness that just kind of built who I was today. As I go through that competitiveness, get into high school, start lifting weights, started doing bodybuilding. Um, so junior, senior year bodybuilding, I competed in bodybuilding in my senior year of high school, which is kind of cool. I finished fourth in all of New England in the NPC. It was like natural something or other. It was natural. I wasn't juicing. There's plenty of guys that did, but I didn't. And then I'm just an adrenaline junkie. So, my best friend and I did a lot of rock climbing. I did skydiving. I got certified in scuba diving. As late as like 3 or 4 years ago, I flew powered parachutes, which is a big fan on your back. And the fan provides you the momentum, and you got a parachute over your head. It's kind of like your wing, like an airplane, and you fly around. So I did that until I crashed into a tree a few years ago.
Where'd you jump out of?
I jumped out of Pepperell, Mass. So I did 2 jumps, and that was when I graduated college, 92. So, yeah, I think you jumped there too, right?
I haven't jumped there. I've jumped in Maine and then in Atlanta.
Oh, no
But
way.
I know we all know Ryan, and he jumps in Pepperell a lot.
Like thousands, yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to do a little jump thing sometime.
That'd be good. I don't know. Yeah, that was 92. No, 93. 93 for me.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike. You'll be fine.
Yeah, now I get a couple kids. Yeah, they don't need me anymore anyhow. Yeah, that's a good
Just
idea.
don't tell anyone you're going until after you get back safe and sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, other than that, it's where'd Kevin go? Like, why is he like 6 feet deep?
He did this podcast and he disappeared. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. So those are my early days. Actually, the bodybuilding thing, as I was going through the dieting process, I just documented my process. So kind of like what I do now, document best practices and sell it as a consultant. I did that for bodybuilding, and I put a little book together. It was like I forget what I called it. It was like pre-contest dieting, and I advertised it in the back of Muscle and Fitness magazine, and actually got, I don't know, 150 different orders for it at like $20 or $30, something like that. So as a senior in high school, it was kind of cool. That was my first like business thing. And then in college, I ran a college pro painting franchise, also in Nashua, just to keep that entrepreneurial thing going. And yeah, so that's little Kevin.
Man, so you're hustling all over the place.
Yeah, always hustling. Yeah, I can't see the retirement thing. Like, honestly, I don't think that'll ever happen.
Same. I'll just the role might just get a little bit more chill each time. Oh, yeah, I'll that, like librarian. That sounds like a good deal. Oh, welcome to the library, young man.
Yes.
Oh man. So okay. So let you blown me away several times earlier today talking about some of the work you're doing with your clients. So tell me what you're doing now with the strategy group.
So right now, one of the things that we actually just see, it's kind of like you retool every few years. So I've been running an executive strategy group since 2007. So my background's been in technology, early 90s inside sales rep for Cabletron Systems. That moved me out to Silicon Valley, was out there for 5 years, stayed with Cabletron, went to Cisco. Then I became part of a Cisco reseller for a few years. We grew them from 6 to 60 million in 18 months. So I learned like some really good stuff. Came back here to the East Coast, ran my own reseller and sold it after 5 years in 2007, and then started consulting. And the impetus for consulting was I was sick of selling products. I wanted to sell business value to my customers and really help them get out of a commodity mindset. And that's what I was successful at doing in Silicon Valley and brought it here to the East Coast. So that's how it started. Like, hey, whatever customer I'm dealing with. Hey, Casey, here's the gaps in your strategy, your go-to-market strategy. Here's the 15 things you got to do on your marketing and 27 on your sales process. Go get her done. So that was the beginning, right? And Casey would be like, Kevin, this is great. It's exactly why we hired you, but I don't know how to do this stuff. I don't want to do it. I don't even know what you're talking about half the time. Can you guys just do it for us? And it was like technical stuff like CRM or implementing workflows or automation or whatever. Like, all right, we'll do it for you. So we productize the service to essentially execute that stuff as a done for you model after we would execute on the strategy piece of it. And it worked out great, gave us like a recurring value model for our customers, recurring revenue for us. And over time, we're like, hey, let's just do more of that. So it started to commoditize us when that's all we were doing. We kind of got away from our strategy roots. So earlier this year, I'm like, no more. Like, we'll still do that stuff, but I want to get back to the strategic view of go to market and all these miss outs that I was just sharing with you earlier in the podcast that customers weren't really focusing on, making all of their marketing campaigns land flat. So ESG respun and relaunched, and we created one offer. It's called our Strategic Revenue Growth Acceleration Program, but it incorporates both, right? The upfront consulting part of it, discovery, or I call value gap assessment, and then the execution part, if they want us to help them execute on it for the next 6 months or 12 months. So it's kind of we married them back together in the right order. And just in the last 2.5 months, we've already brought on 8 new clients with this new moniker out there. So it's definitely resonating. And we just keep, like, if you're asking like, well, what are you up to now? It's two things. How do we keep refining our customer acquisition strategy, try to get 1% better every day, back to like the Jalen Brown situation, and then 1% better on our customer delivery. How can we keep adding more and more value so that our customers can achieve their goals faster or more predictably? So that's what we're up to right now.
Dude. Um, is the next right step getting that that value gap assessment? Would you recommend that?
Yeah, that's typically exactly how we start. So it's kind of like, we'll start working with a client, or we'll start talking to a prospect, and they're like, well, here's our stuff. So we look at their website, and I just put a blog out last week. We call it a highlighter trick. So like, I'll walk them through a couple of exercises first so they can almost like start the gap analysis on their own. So I say, take 2-color highlighters, highlight in yellow everything on your website or landing page or email or phone script. Like, just grab whatever the thing is, highlight in yellow everything where you talk about you, how great you are, the thing you sell, how long you've been in business, how many products you have, like all that stuff goes in yellow. Then in green, highlight any piece of business value that the customer will get from working with you, like increased revenue, systematic approach to blah, 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 right? Like increase revenue, decrease expenses, minimize risk, like highlight all that stuff in green. And what typically they'll see is like, oh my God, this is like 98% yellow and maybe 2% green. And the funny thing is the green stuff generally is in small font. It should be in the big font, because usually we're talking about ourselves in the big font, like, best practices around security, blah, 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 or this or that. Like, yeah, that's the thing you sell. What do I get? Right. So the gap analysis kind of starts honestly in our initial discovery call with the customer, just to point some things out. And we ask permission. We're like, hey, do you mind if I call your baby ugly a little bit? Like, oh my God, no, go ahead. Call my baby totally ugly. Yeah, we dive into
Man, you can't call the baby ugly. What are you gonna do, right?
it.
Damn. Okay. Where do you want people to go in order to sign up for the assessment?
So just go to executivestrategygroup.com, and right in the upper right hand corner, I forget what it says. It's either chat with, let me look real quick, see what my specific call to action is.
Chat with a growth expert, baby.
There you go. Chat with a growth expert. That'll get you there. And then you can just set up a 30-minute call. We'll just walk through some cool stuff. My commitment on that call, and I got to put it on my landing page, is I want you to leave with something of value that you could implement right after the call, whether we work together or not. So I want to serve and give ideas and thoughts. There's nothing more that I love than just that kind of light bulb moment go off for the customer, They're like, holy mackerel. Like, here's another one. Like, they tell me what they do. And then I'm like, so it's kind of like this. So, like, the way you just said that, can you, I hope you're recording this call because I've never been able to say it the way you just said it. So we have somewhat of a superpower around those two things.
Well, it's one, you understand sales and marketing, and then 2, you're just not so deep in it that you're stuck in your own vocabulary, you know? And I know how that feels. Sometimes, I feel stuck in my own vocabulary, and it's like, I gotta break free.
Oh, me too. I mean, I'm a victim of that too. Like we hired on an outside, copywriter just to help look at my stuff because I'm in the weeds on my stuff. So it's always been like Tiger Woods always had a golf coach, but he's Tiger Woods. Yeah, but someone's gonna look at his swing too, you know?
Yeah, but when you're critiquing Tiger Woods, you better know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Good point.
Dude, one final question
Sure.
to tie this amazing adrenaline life up with a bow, and that is, well, that's hypothetical, if you're ready for that. You
Yeah.
ready? Okay.
Sure.
Alright. See, I may or may not have a time machine in Nashua here.
All right.
It's just outside, covered in a tarp, actually, behind the office. So, let's say you get on over here, right? We get some beers, we go hang out, we hop in the time machine, special kind of time machine. You get a chance to go back in time and meet yourself a couple days after that undergrad, and you can talk to yourself for a couple minutes. What are you saying? What kind of things you're gonna pass along?
So this is something I've actually been thinking about lately. And it's, it's kind of late in my career. I'm in my mid 50s, but I would say this is something I wish I maybe thought about more in a different light. So early on, I always wanted to be independent and wanted to just I can do it myself. I can do it on my own. And maybe part of it was like I liked the feeling of the recognition of doing something and someone being like, holy cow, Kevin McCann, look at him. He's great. So I think I liked that. So what that did is it forced me to be more and more independent and level up on technical skill sets or on like sales or whatever. Like I get the award for selling the most, right? It's like me. So what that kind of the path it sent me down, definitely I'm always been an entrepreneur, always hungry, always, really doing my thing, but it sent me down more of a technical, like technician role. So as I started hiring on team members, it was harder for me to delegate. I'm like, well, I already know how to do it the best. So I'm not going to delegate to you. I'll do it. And I'll just say, yeah, here, you take it from here. So it forced me into a position where, um, I almost started arguing with myself, like, well, why should I hire someone if I already know how to do that? I'll just take care of it. It'll be done. I'll move on. So now I'm part of EO Boston after, 20 years of the game, 25 years of the game. And as I'm looking at scale and what companies are doing to scale, most of the guys that are successful aren't the ones that are diving deep in the technical details. They're just hiring a guy to do that. Like I understand it's a problem. It's going to be done at the highest level. The first thing I get to think of is find the who that knows the how. And I've also read a book or two on that. So I think what I would tell myself is like, it's good to be independent. It's good to know how to do this stuff. But in order for you to scale to the level that you should and you're capable of doing, don't do it all. Find the who that knows the how and build your team that way, and then get better at the technical details of managing these people to help them excel in their career. And I've kind of done that, but not enough. So I think that's kind of like what I'm working on now. But if I knew that, 20 years ago, I think things could be a little different than it would take me down a little bit of a different path.
Yeah, maybe a little bit faster to get to, but, it's that tough thing because sometimes that who is a little bit more pricey than you can afford sometimes.
But then that if I knew knowing what I know now, then is like, that's fine. If they're pricey, that's going to mean that they're going to offer a high level of quality. Then your job is to make sure that that offer that you're delivering to them is priced accordingly. And if it's priced accordingly and you're not closing customers, then you got to level up your sales ability. So it would have forced me to look at different things as opposed to, you're right, the guy's expensive, so I'll just do it myself, which was my mindset.
Dude, huge, huge takeaways. Man, where can people we've heard a couple things, but, like, throw out where can people contact you? What kind of social platforms? What URLs? Where do you want them to go?
Sure. So I would say hit me on LinkedIn. Seem to be doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I don't know if we can put my link in the show notes, but we can do that. Twitter's a mess, so don't hit me on Twitter. Just hit me on LinkedIn, or
Are you on Twitter?
I am, but it's more just like outbound. I try not to look at it
That's
too
funny.
much.
Dude, we gotta connect on there because I used to have, like, 1,000,000 followers back in the day, you know? And now it's a bunch of new people on Twitter, and I'm so lonely on there, so maybe we could tweet at each other,
That'd be
but
good. We'll do that. I'll do. Actually, I need to figure that platform out. But shoot me an email, Kate McCann, KMCCANN at execstratgroup.com. Just condensed version of our website.
Cool, and we'll put all of that in the show notes, even a link to that button on your website. We'll put that in there. We'll just call it the button link. We'll put it on there so if people wanna just go right to the contact, they can just boop, 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 fill out that info, get that assessment. Man, I wanna get an assessment, so if you're listening to this, get in line because I guess I have an advantage because we're not gonna publish this thing today, so I'm gonna get a chance to do that too, but you know what? We're in and around this. Yeah, I sometimes know some of this stuff, but I gotta have someone like you, Kevin, just, you know, making sure that I'm dotting the I's or making sure I'm not skipping over something because I've stared at it so long, and forcing me to go, well, how many activities are you gonna do in order to make that thing happen? And I think sometimes it's like wishful thinking on metrics instead of just do the math. What do you need? What couple steps beforehand to make it happen, dude?
And look at it daily.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm sign me up, I'm in. Um, and man, dude, Kevin, thank you so much for being on here. This has been great. I don't know if you could tell, but the time warp just happened. An hour just evaporated in an amazing way. I've learned so much. The 4 things are gonna be huge for me. Fix that engine before adding that fuel. I'm gonna be focusing on my engine, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks, Casey, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah. And those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, you know why? Because I've got 2 pages of notes. I got front and back. I've run out of space. I'm in the margins. I'm drawing sideways and big letters and small letters. I learned some stuff. I know you did too. So share this with like one person. Why? It's just thought leadership. Get good information into other people's hands. They're probably struggling with the same thing. They're probably adding fuel to no engine. They're probably not aligning their troops or arming their soldiers. So get this information into good hands. With that, Kevin, thank you again, sir.
Thanks, Case. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, everybody. This has been a crazy episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.